Good morning, and I'd like to welcome the Council for State Public Affairs to Warren County Community College today. And I'd like to welcome all of our guests and all of you in the audience as well. It's a pleasure to have you here today at Warren County Community College. We are the final community college founded in the state of New Jersey, so we have the shortest history, but we've had some amazing things happen in the western region during the last 10 years, not the least of which is the college has grown in its physical presence, has doubled, its enrollment has doubled, and we've had great success according to Governor Christie's task force on higher ed in terms of our graduation rate ranking the highest in the state for any community college. So it's kind of apropos to host this event today and to welcome these panel discussions, the first of which will be on the economy in the western region, and the second on education, both of which are hot topics in this part of the state as we are working hard to develop our economy, and the community college is working with our local leaders and our educational professionals to enhance both the economy and the state of education in this part of our state. And so we're proud to welcome you, and I hope the panel discussion is fruitful for everyone, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Austin. And good morning to everyone, and thank you for joining us for State of the State, the Western Region 2012. And I'd ask each of my panelists to start from my left and just introduce yourselves and tell me briefly why you're here and your relationship to the economy in the region.
My name is Parker Space. I'm a freeholder in Sussex County and also a local business owner in our town. I'm a third generation to operate our family business. We have a zoo with all kinds of different livestock on one end, but also we have an active farm too. And so it's an integral part of our our business, and also living in Sussex County with the economy.
I'm James Graham, President and CEO of the Warren County Regional Chamber of Commerce, and recently from Southern California, and I've been here since May. But my specialty is economic development, and I'm here because of that very subject matter.
Great. And Freeholder?
Yes, I'm Freeholder Jason Sarnoski. I'm a Warren County freeholder, and I'm the founder of the Warren County Economic Development Advisory Council. So I'm very involved with economic development, and we've been doing a lot of work this past year to get some stimulated economic development in Warren County.
Terrific. Well, thank you all for being here this morning. Let me just ask you, let's start by asking you how you'd characterize the economy. And perhaps if you could start out too, those of us who are from Central Jersey maybe tend to look at Sussex and Warren and think, oh, they're very similar counties, but I'm sure that there are some differences between the two as well. So Freeholder Sarnoski, why don't we start with you and ask how you would characterize the economy in Warren County?
The economy in Warren County has been slow the last 4 years. We certainly have not seen the growth, and with the downturn that we had, we have not seen the resurgence that we would have liked. We've had slower revenues than or decreased revenues, and they have not come back. It's a difficult. There's still not a lot of confidence, I don't think, in the economy, and confidence. What business people want to see is some stability. They want to see stability. They want to see something they can predict, because they don't like to take big risks. They don't like taking some risks to grow their business, but they don't want to take these big risks that put them into a dangerous situation. So I don't think people are really ready. They want some confidence in the economy, so we haven't seen that come back yet. We are an agricultural, rural community. Our businesses really strive and thrive from that, but we do have some industry and business.
Do you feel like your economy is following the national economy as much as the state economy? Do you feel, obviously the whole nation is feeling the drag of the economy.
Sure.
But do you really feel that you're tied to the rest of New Jersey, or are you in kind of a separate
I think
place?
We're closer tied to New Jersey rather than what's happening as the United States as a whole. I look at it as really as a state driver. What we see is we need to drive with the state rather than the whole United States. But the United States has a lot to do with the overall economy. I just feel we follow a little bit behind that.
Okay, great. And Freeholder Space, from your perspective, let's talk about Sussex County.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, along with, like Jason said too, it's definitely slowed down. I know in our own business, and many contractors that we work with, from what they had a few years ago, and what it is today, it's a bit different. And it tells you too, when you drive down the streets of the, through our rural community, and you see the foreclosed homes,
You have
3
a
or
fairly
4.
high percentage of
Yeah,
foreclosures in
I
Sussex
believe it was
County.
around like 600, or one house for every 600 or something was in foreclosure. And it definitely shows you the state of the times. And as far, I mean, with the state regulations too, there's a lot of things that, the more regulations always adds more restrictions. And when you're a business owner in a struggling economy, you have to have free hands to be able to, to do what you have to do to try to bring in some extra income and get out of the situation that we're in. But I think there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. We're slowly moving there, but it's not very fast.
Okay. Well, James, you're the economic development expert.
Oh.
And and you're just here from Southern California, which has to be an interesting story all in itself. When you looked at New Jersey and at the prospect of coming back to New Jersey, because you're from the East Coast originally, it said, what did you think about the prospects for New Jersey's economy, and particularly this region's economy?
Well, New Jersey is a very interesting piece of real estate. It's between two spheres of influence, Pennsylvania and New York. And the two spheres of influence has actually been tugging on New Jersey in various ways, depending on what year you're talking about. In terms of Warren County and Sussex, the two are very different in certain respects and very similar in others. For instance, unemployment in both counties is 8.8%. In terms of both have lost populations. Warren County has had a negative 3% growth in its population. Sussex had a negative 4%, or negative 5% in its growth.
Which is pretty, it's unusual. It goes against the trend in New Jersey generally, right?
It does. It absolutely does. And also, in terms of differences, certainly Sussex is a larger population base, 147,000 people, and Sussex, Warren County has 108,000. So there are some differences, there are some similarities, but they are both, I would say, in terms of unemployment, 8.8%, and they're both experiencing slow growth, but yet there are an enormous amount of possibilities. And we'll probably talk about that later, but there are certainly 5 industries that both can experience growth from, emerging industries that probably should be focused on.
So you really looked at this area as something you were optimistic about the prospects for coming back to the region.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In terms of where I've come from, California, New Jersey and Warren and Sussex in particular, are much more conservative in their expenditures, in their lifestyle. California is the 8th largest actual economy in the world, but the expenditures and the investments in California have been much more. The risk-taking has been also greater in California.
So that's helping us in the long run in New Jersey, is that we haven't sunk as low as California.
No, in real estate, a lot more has been invested in real estate in the California region, in the western region, than on the East Coast.
And of course, nobody wants to be the next California. So in terms of what's happening here in New Jersey, in Warren County, what are your long-range economic development plans, or what have you done to say we need to put something in place to make sure that we don't go off the deep end here as some towns in California have done?
Well, I think with the change in the economy, everyone's long-range economic development plans have changed. We're redeveloping our long-range plan right now. I've started the Warren County Economic Development Advisory Council to come up with some ideas on where we would like to see growth, but I think it's really a partnership because you have to partner with municipalities. We don't want to thrust our influence on any municipality. It's the communities that have to decide how they themselves want to develop. We should just be a partner in that, and really government's role should be getting out of the way of
And you have a uniquely rural atmosphere in New Jersey.
In Warren County, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we do have a uniquely rural, with a lot of people want to see more open space, and we have something called the Highlands. And the Highlands creates its own challenges to economic development because it takes away the development rights of most of our properties.
Explain briefly just what the Highlands Act is.
The Highlands Act is a act enacted by the legislature to protect the water supply, which is in Warren, Sussex,
for the rest of the state.
For the rest of the northern region of the state. But unfortunately, with that, there really doesn't come any revenue from that. We don't get a water tax to incentivize us for
You're You're almost penalized for doing
yes,
the right
we're
thing.
penalized for protecting the water for the rest of the state. It takes away our development rights, it takes away the land values we have, because the land pretty much becomes non-developable. And a lot of our residents have complained about that fact, and it poses a great challenge for businesses with
You
their
have the same
restrictions.
issue in Sussex County as well, because you're part of the Highlands region.
Yeah, it's the same as, you know, he was saying before too, with the restrictions on the landowners to benefit somebody else downstream, or, you know, voting constituents are the ones that are stuck with the pieces of property that were valued at a high dollar at one time, and now basically the value is gone. And so they should have some sort of compensation back. And as he was saying, you know, with the building, it makes it so hard with stream requirements. I mean, each stream is classified on the distance that you can build off it now, and there's so many regulations to make it harder and harder. So it's definitely an obstacle we have to overcome. I know a lot of people are concerned about the Agenda 21, but this is, I think, what we're looking at right here with
Sure.
the Highlands Act.
So given those restrictions then, what kind of industries are you looking to bring in? You'd mentioned there were 5 industries that are here. What are the 5 industries?
Well,
prevalent?
and they're evolutionary, and they don't have to be revolutionary. Tourism is a very strong potential here in Warren and Sussex County, as well as the healthcare industry. Agriculture is still an important industry in the county, and there are certainly areas of growth, for instance, food processors. A lot of our raw materials are simply grown and then shipped out instead of processed here. And then, of course, there are a lot of the technology industries, particularly in the manufacturing field, the new type of manufacturing where you focus primarily on certain specialties, such as certain elements of the healthcare industry and manufacturing can be bridged together. And of course, logistics are important.
So are these the kinds of industries that you're looking to bring growth into in both your counties?
Yeah, obviously with, you know, tourism is huge, you know, for Sussex County and Warren County. And then with the agritourism and trying, because being such a big farming community too, and trying to incorporate that in for the folks that come up from down below to enjoy the country atmosphere, but also being able to, in return, you know, have the farmers look for an alternative income too, because it's harder and harder for those to survive also.
Yeah. And how about you?
Yeah, I think James hit on all the industries that are just right for our demographic. The agritourism, the ecotourism, healthcare industry is still a growing industry, and we have a strong population for that. We have great programs even at Warren County Community College with nursing. And really, growing the economy is about you know, manufacture or creating a product and being able to sell it just not only within yourself, but outside. And to market that product, and we have a product, like James said, with agro and agritourism, that is something we try to refine and capitalize on. So I agree that those are that, but we need to bring in too the jobs, because we have to create those jobs. Creating jobs, giving people work, getting people into employment will have them feel more secure about their environment. They'll spend more. They'll improve the economy, they'll buy houses, and that's what's going to start growing.
And most of your residents now work outside the county, is that right? Or?
Most of them do work outside the county, because we've been trying to push those jobs back in the county. They come from outside the county, or they live in the county and they work outside. Few, I think 25% work within the county. Most live and then work outside, or live in the Pennsylvania area and come and work into our areas. So, you know, we want to create more of those jobs within the county to give people that sense of security and build the wealth.
So do you think that's going to be accomplishable?
Oh, absolutely. I think anything's accomplishable if you put your mind to it. But once again, it can't be government growing those jobs. It has to be private industry, because when government grows a job, it's just another burden on the taxpayer, and it's just more of an expense. It needs to be the private industry, and really what government needs to do is get out of its way, you know, or give it the resources it needs to grow and to flourish. And that's really what we should be doing right now.
And James, you're obviously here representing business, private sector. In terms of what you're looking to put together, what kinds of cooperation and what kind of working together are you looking to do with government in the county? Who you're looking to partner with as you grow the economy?
Well, it's very important that the municipalities work together. Home rule has at times been a blessing, also as a curse, in terms of New Jersey and also these counties. Everybody wants their own army, basically their own police force, and it costs a great deal of money. But the regulatory issues that businesses have to face different from municipality to municipality, and that is truly a damper on small business. The Highlands Act is another one of those regulatory issues. So therefore, more cooperation with state government is extremely important. But more importantly in all of this, our businesses need new markets, and they need to expand into new territory. And strangely enough, and a lot of individuals may not believe that international affairs has an impact on your local community, but it certainly does.
How so?
For instance, manufacturing. When China decides not to import coal from the United States, that certainly impacts manufacturing. Or when they decide not to buy any more produce, that certainly impacts agriculture. So that's only one small element of how international affairs impacts Warren and Sussex, but it certainly does.
And we may not see those links every day, but
You don't see them, but they do impact you.
Yeah. From the terms of regulation, do you think that there's been a coordinated attempt from your Freeholder board, for example, to kind of streamline regulation and make sure that there's some consistency across the county? Or
Well, being with, we have a real good rapport with our legislative team, and so directly, we have a lot of contact with them daily, so we can bring that from the municipalities, the mayors and councils that come to us with concerns, and then we can directly relay it to them to have our voice heard in Trenton. So pretty much, we're definitely very pro-business, pro in growing the, economy in Sussex County, and that's with our legislative team. They're a great help, so yes, we do.
And you've got the same kind of cooperation? And
Yeah, we have in the Northern Territory of Warren County, we have the same legislative team, the 24th District, and in our 23rd District, legislators are also very pro-activity with the economy and business. They get very involved. Unfortunately, though, we are up against rules and regulations set by the state that maybe even our legislators did not vote on or did not approve of, but yet we're still up against those things, such as the Highlands, COA regulations, a myriad of different taxes and statutory requirements that we're up against that we have to deal with that hamper our ability to grow business. One of the things we're doing in Warren County, we have tomorrow a Resources for Business Growth event. And what that is it brings businesses together with the state agencies to break down those barriers to growth that the state agencies or that the state may have inadvertently created or that exist for the business. And they get to go confront these agencies directly with the DP, IRS, DCA, whatever it may be.
to cut through some of the red tape and the
Cut through
regulation.
some of the red tape, get some answers to the problems for actually growing business.
So one of the biggest weapons, you might say, in your arsenal would just be education and putting people in touch with the right agencies and trying to help them get through some of the red tape.
In many cases, that's what we need to do or what we can do.
For entrepreneurs and people who are starting
for businesses. We get them in touch with the right people who are going to solve their problems. And sometimes, unfortunately, those problems just are not solved because legislatively they can't be changed. DEP regulations just, and the time it takes to get through some of these DEP regulations just cause such a hamper to business growth in New Jersey that a lot of times businesses say, they throw up their hands and say, well, we'll just go somewhere where that's more friendly or doesn't have the same regulations as you, and there goes that business and that opportunity.
It's interesting because, obviously you have state regulations for businesses to deal with, but you would tend to think that in an area that wasn't as populated, that maybe there would be fewer regulatory issues to deal with. Perhaps at a local level, but there's more? Because
Across the board, sometimes you would think, obviously, in more of a rural atmosphere, you'd have less restrictions, but a lot of the times the restrictions end up being in the rural atmosphere or rural communities because the people in the more consolidated areas want to keep the places rural.
Exactly.
So the ones end up like, we can see here, people end up paying more taxes, but it's a sort of a circle. It's because, there's less development. So if you want to live in an open area, you kind of, in some cases, have to end up paying for having a rural atmosphere as compared to in a more industrialized area where you drive down the street and there's, factory after factory.
Right.
So that's going to offset the cost of it. We're up here, Warren and Sussex County, we don't really have that option.
Right. You go to another county, they zone in lots. We zone in acres.
Right.
So
Makes it hard.
it's different.
Yeah. Well, we're talking a lot about business. Not everybody owns a business or is an entrepreneur. Obviously, many people, as you said, work other places. How do you think the impact of the economy is being felt for people who live in the counties? who may not own a business here, but the residents. I mean, you mentioned the foreclosure rate was high.
Oh, absolutely. And even I see the other day, and which sort of comes back around, is with Sparta Township, now in the daytime, because I'm very active in the fire department in our hometown, and they went with paid drivers for their first aid squad in the daytime between sits and sits now, which I think is going to be an up-and-coming trend throughout the county, mainly for the reason is volunteerism is hard to find with the criteria they have to put forth to be a fireman or a first aid squad member. And I try to keep instilling, you know, in the people that you have to use your local contractors, your businessmen, because I know, like in the daytime, if we have a fire call, you got the guy that hands the overhead doors, the guy that's, you know, driving the bulldozer, the local contractors, the ones, if you keep the people working locally, you keep them stimulated in their economy, they're still going to be around in the daytime to, on the other hand, to come back if there is an emergency to help out. And if we send a lot of our people out of the county, you know, looking for work, when the emergency happens, they're not going to be there. So that's where we always try to, like, bring it back.
And keep in mind, too, also in terms of business and the economy, prior to the recession, money was flying all over the place. People were spending on things and
Those were
buying
the days,
things.
weren't
Those
they?
were the days. And people were doing things that were unconscionable now. On the other side of this recession, and hopefully on the other side of the recession, businesses are behaving differently. You'll probably in the future, and even now, see more and more employees being hired under contract, so that they don't have to, so that the business owner doesn't have to be concerned with benefits.
Right.
More and more people are working from home, so therefore, you're going to see a whole different way of conducting business. Even people are buying homes differently than they did. A lot of people are leasing a home instead of, or with the option to buy the home later. More of that is occurring. So we're behaving differently than we were prior to the recession.
So when your business is obviously looking to develop and you're looking to support business owners, but as we just pointed out, you've got fewer people perhaps to market to in a region. So how do you deal with that?
You look for new markets. For instance, at the Warren County Regional Chamber of Commerce, we've unveiled a whole series of new programs that will create value in membership. For instance, an ambassador program where we'll take a number of our community businesses and take them to New York, take them to Pennsylvania, take them to Virginia and market Warren County through an exposition, and therefore hoping to create linkages that were not there before.
And give us an example of what one of those might be.
For instance, matter of fact, presidents as well as governors do that all the time when they take a whole group of businesses with
Trade
them.
missions.
Trade missions and those type of things. So it's more like a domestic trade mission as opposed to an international one.
So it might be a business fair or an exposition.
Exactly. But keep in mind, there's a lot of legwork that occurs prior to doing something like that, because you want to make sure that those in the other states are expecting you and looking forward to meeting you, and you know exactly who you're going to meet before you even go there. So it's important that you set it up properly and you go from there.
We've talked about some of the changes in the economy. What do you think you would characterize as, say, what's the biggest impact that you've seen on the economy, on the local economy for you in this past year? If you can, other than the national economy being slow overall, has there been one specific instance that you can point to that said really made a difference here?
Positive or negative?
Both.
Okay.
Positive and negative. Let's do that.
The biggest impact, you know, I think any time when you have a change in your leadership, you're changing your government, you know, it brings with it certain securities and insecurities in industries. So when you see a change, like for example, when we had a change in the governor, they changed their focus on how they want to deal with business and how they're going to focus their business in cutting regulations. You know, you see businesses react a different way. I believe we're going to see the same thing in November when we have the presidential elections, whichever way it turns. I think that'll also give businesses a direction and a stability. So there'll
Certainty,
be
you mentioned
a certainty,
earlier, that's
right?
important,
A certainty.
yeah.
They'll know which way the business is going to go, the economy is going to go, whether it be one way or another. At least they'll have an answer. So I expect that we'll even see a little bit of a positive turnaround either way. Long term, you know, remains to be seen after that. But you know, I think you see that anytime you see a leadership change, and we're trying to change the atmosphere in Warren County. Like I said, that we put together an Economic Development Advisory Council. The Regional Chamber of Commerce, just James is relatively new president. You know, you see these changes in leadership and direction from time to time, and now we just have to focus on where we want to go, set a good direction, and it's like anything else. If you fail to plan, you're going to plan to fail. You have to have a direction and support that direction with your actions.
So you're taking a positive step, you think, with the new economic development plan and moving forward proactively?
You know, I think yes. I think we are. I mean, anytime you're moving forward carefully and you're considering your steps, you know, it is positive. At least you're putting a focus on it. You know, right, wrong, and different. We're putting a focus on the real issues, and that's important because at least it brings awareness to what's going on. So that's
Freeholder, what would you characterize as having the biggest impact, both positive and negative, on the economy in the past year?
Well, I think the biggest impact obviously was, you know, with, as we talked before, with the, you know, with the foreclosures and jobs. But right now, you know, we're definitely cautiously optimistic. I know with the state chamber, I'm sure you probably have the figures better than I do. I believe it was this year, it was like 20% of the businesses statewide were looking at a possible expansion on their business. Possible.
Yeah.
And then 40% were, you know, looking into hiring more help. So I think that's going across the state slowly but surely. Sussex County, we're reaching out to with the business owners that are coming in with an idea that they might have on what they might want to start, what they might want to build. And we're kind of like trying to cut as much tape out of the way and push them forwards and easing up a lot of, you know, the requirements that might be on, you know, generally across the board and making it a lot easier and more streamlined for them.
It sounds like you're feeling pretty positive, too, and pretty optimistic.
Yeah, it's definitely turning around a little bit. We're not going to be out of it right away, but it's, you know, we're on the uphill slope, I think.
I agree.
And James, from your perspective, being able to look at it from a more national or broader perspective, how do you think New Jersey's doing compared to some of the other states across the country?
New Jersey's in an interesting crossroads and an interesting transition, both politically and economically. New Jersey has to sort of map out where its niche, and it hasn't determined that yet because it has these two spheres of influence pulling on it.
Do you think that's why we're ahead of the rest of the country in unemployment? Do you think that has an impact on that?
It does certainly has an impact on it, and New Jersey is a wonderful piece of real estate, so it's in a great location, but it also is in a location between these two behemoths that it's simply going to have to deal with. We can have fairs, we can have festivals, all you like, but and those are nice things, but it's almost like spraying perfume on roadkill. It still smells. So you're going to have
That's an interesting analogy.
So you're going to have to still go forward with serious economic development, and it's going to require money.
In terms of the regulation, obviously, you know, the regulation that you talked about, you're doing your best to streamline those regulations. New Jersey is notorious for being a home rule state. Do you think that, do you actually see that as it plays out in your day-to-day experience governing the county, where if we merged perhaps some municipalities, is there a movement to do that or to share services?
We've done a lot of looking at shared services over the last year. In Warren County, it's not as easy as it is in some of the other areas. For example, we have a lot of municipalities that have state police coverage as opposed to local police coverage. And you know, with state police coverage, they don't pay those direct police costs, so why would they want to merge with the town next to them
No
that
incentive at all.
You know, and there's no incentive for that. We're seeing some positive directions with merging certain school areas and schools. You know, I think home rule is a challenge, you know, in some cases where people don't want to give up their identity and merge with another town. I know we've seen it in Princeton, where two towns merged and merged their capabilities. But I don't think you're going to see that in Warren County very much. We have a few areas where maybe it's a potential, but they've done as much sharing services as they can. And we still try to do that in Warren County. We share services with road departments, with purchasing, that certainly help. But in the long run, the gains have become smaller, gotten smaller and smaller. They've kind of leveled off.
So even in this economy, there's no further economic incentive to push?
Not as much, no. I mean, there will be some sharing services going forward, and there's some opportunities, but it's not as low-hanging fruit as it used to be, and as big of a payback as it used to be.
And how about in Sussex County?
For example, I know the last year I was mayor in our hometown of Wantage, and in 2009, Sussex Borough, which is 1 square mile, and Wantage Township, which is 68 square miles, was sort of at the forefront for consolidating the 2 towns by the state of New Jersey. And it was, actually came to the ballot, and it got voted down, mainly, as he said before, people were afraid to lose their identity. We already had the schools, you know, consolidated schools, fire departments, there's your 2 biggest ones right there, had state police coverage all the way through, and it came right to the end, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So, but obviously,
Did you
shared
try to
services.
drive this as a freeholder?
Was that?
Excuse me, did you try to drive this as a freeholder?
Well, this was back in 2009. I was on, you know, our Wantage Township then. And, yeah, I mean, we went out, we had the state come up and all the ideas and benefits that there was to it, and that was the ultimate demise of it, was the identity of the town they didn't want to lose. But as far as shared services, you know, obviously like Warren County, you know, we're back and forth the road departments all the way across the board, and, you know, we're definitely in favor on that.
Excuse me, pardon me. New Jersey's pretty unique in this, right, with the municipalities, the number of municipalities.
Yeah, it's an enormous number of municipalities, over 580 some odd municipalities. I mean, even California doesn't have that many. It is, taxpayers are going to, at some point in the future, have to deal with this because everyone can't have their own army. Everyone can't have their own police
Do you see
fire.
the business community possibly leading this charge?
Eventually, we're going to have to step up to the plate because the taxes, the tax burden is going to just increase. Particularly for smaller municipalities where the tax is really hitting the residents because there's no economic base there, and so therefore they have to pay for everything, and they still want their own army. So I mean, you're just not going to get away with it. It's just simply not going to happen.
From your perspective, given that you've got kind of a blank slate in a sense, you're starting out fresh in this organization, what would be the one thing you'd like to see really happen here to bring a positive economic change?
I would like to see the municipalities work closer together, as well as state government have meaningful economic development programs. Nibbling around the edges is not going to make it. I think that you're really going to have to face the fact that you're going to have to make an investment in your community.
And do you think we're not doing this in New Jersey?
I think that we're starting down that path in terms of looking at what makes sense, but at the end of the day, it's going to require investment on behalf of all of us, because otherwise we'll simply have to decide to stand still. And you know, if you're in business, if you stand still, you're actually going backwards.
You're moving behind, yes.
So it's just one of those things.
Okay. And Freeholder Space, from your perspective, what would be the one thing you'd really like to see happen for a positive change in the economy?
A positive change,
Yeah.
as I think we said before, you know, less restrictions from the top down, free up the hands of the, you know, the business owners and the entrepreneurs that want to start out and take off. That would be the biggest thing I would look for.
Do you think we're making progress in that direction?
Slowly but surely, you know, it's less and less all the time from some aspects, but then as soon as you lose a few, there's other regulations that come in and tie your hands back up. So I'm just ready to cut the strings all together and so we can move forward.
You're not talking secession or anything, right?
No.
No, okay. How about from your perspective?
I
yeah.
completely agree with the Sussex County Freeholder. That's exactly what we're looking for. We're looking for less government involvement, and government needs to get out of the way of business.
Terrific. Well, we're almost out of time. If I could ask each of you just for a closing thought. We'll start with you, Freeholder.
Yeah, you know, with the economy, we need, like I've been saying, government needs to get out of the way of business. We're going to see an uptick once we see some confidence from business owners and from people who start businesses. And then that confidence is going to bring jobs, and jobs are going to create more wealth. And we need to create something in the United States. We need to be a country of manufacturing, somebody who creates something that we can ship to other countries and create wealth here, and that'll bring back the jobs and bring back the growth. You know, and we gotta worry. It's not only about the loss of jobs, but people who have gone back to their jobs. Our unemployment rate has gone down, but we got to understand there's a lot of underemployment. People are not making what they made 5 years ago. You know, that they're making less, so they're being more conservative now with their money and how they spend it, because you know, once bitten, twice shy. They're not going to go out there and spend like they did at one point, and Mr. Graham made that.
Not for a while, anyway. Yeah. James, your parting thought?
I would say that this recession has taught us the value of establishing a quality of life. And that requires investment. Investment in education, investment in infrastructure, investment in our community so that we can actually live and work where we live. A lot of people are commuting long distances just to get a couple of bucks. And that is, in essence, actually taking away from that quality of life. So you're going to have to make a decision whether or not you want a good quality of life or you want to be on the road for long periods of time for a couple of bucks and see less of your family. So that's the bottom line.
Basic decision. Freeholder?
As we said before, it's slowly coming out, but for one, we have to support, our businesses countywide, through the county, throughout the, the state, and they have to have the benefit and the drive and determination to strive forwards, but also from the government level, and we have to, as we said before, kind of ease it up on them to be able to move forwards. I think it's a big part of it is that it makes it hard with the government, with the way the recession is too, as before, with people, as we talked about with the foreclosed homes and everything else. When you start bailing other people out and put it on the backs of your business leaders, your taxpayers, to try to compensate for the mistakes that others have made, that's where a lot of the problems stemmed from, and we have to alleviate that and move forwards. But like I said, I think we're definitely moving in the right direction.
Right.
With the Jersey comeback, right?
We can hope. It's nice to end on an optimistic note here in the Western region. Thank you all so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take a short break. We're moving to our next discussion.